Here we go. Oh, we got the vacuum going. All right, hello, welcome to Atlanta News First Plus, Sports Plus, to Sports Tonight. We got the vacuum in the background. We got Dave Archer, former Falcons quarterback, current analyst of the radio broadcast, and we're going to talk a lot of things with Arch. Arch, thanks so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it.
It's always good to be with you, buddy. Let's see what we can chop up here.
Let's talk about the new defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, introduced today. His big thing is, of course, in New Orleans was getting after the quarterback. They had a lot of sacks, and the Falcons didn't have a lot of sacks, so this could be a good thing.
Yeah, I think it probably begins there. I'm sure as a Falcon fan, that's what they want to hear, right, Fred? They want to get after the passer. Atlanta just 21 sacks this last season. New Orleans, on the other hand, was fifth in the National Football League with 48 sacks on the year. And the thing that I love about it, Fred, is the fact that you're not talking about one particular guy, a dominant player. Now, Cam Jordan certainly has been a dominant player and certainly been a thorn in the side of the Falcons in his career with his 23 sacks and 22 career games against the Falcons. But when you look at their sacks, 48 sacks, they had 5 players with 5+ sacks. That tells me they get after you a lot of different ways. 13 guys, at least 13 players on their team had at least 1 sack. That's a problem because now you can't identify one player. Now all of a sudden it's 5 players with 5+ sacks, and I've got 13 other guys or 8 other guys that have gotten a sack themselves. So now all of a sudden you got a problem in trying to figure out where they're coming from, who's coming, and trying to get everybody blocked. I like that. How does that compare to the Falcons? Falcons had one guy with 5+ sacks. That was Grady Jarrett, had 6 sacks, and they only had 9 players with at least a sack. So you can see how those numbers are multiplied significantly under Ryan Nielsen's defense.
Well, and I think too, if you're a player, you like that. You like to see that stat because you're going to be in a position where you've got a chance to get some sacks, and you're going to have some chance to get a little bit of attention, by making some plays.
Yeah, no question about it. It's a problem for me as a quarterback now. Is I'm trying to figure out where they're coming from. Okay, so I'm trying to get my offensive line set. Trying to get my protection set. Okay, I've got to go over here at Cam Jordan. But yeah, I got to take care of him. Maybe that guy is Arnold have the KT next year. The Falcons. I got to get that guy blocked. And now all of a sudden I've got guys coming off the other side. Here comes Troy Anderson through the middle. I mean, that's a problem to try to diagnose where people are coming from and the pressure they create. He talked about in his press conference. And most defensive coordinators are going to say, hey, we want to be tough and we want to be physical and we want to play aggressive. Every defensive coordinator is going to say that, but do the numbers back that up? This was a team that was 5th in the National Football League in total yards given up defensively on the defensive side. That's yards given up. They were 5th in the league in sacks. They were 9th in the league in scoring defense. That's where it equates, right, Fred? Keep people off the scoreboard, and can I put your quarterback on the spanny? That's what they did in New Orleans.
You know what I like too is when he talked today, whether it was a 3-4 or 4-3, it was just a front 7, and you're going to have to figure. And you as a quarterback, when you step up there, you're going to have to figure out where they're coming from and what they're doing with it.
Yeah, and I think that blends well with the personnel here in Atlanta. With some of the guys are going to maybe potentially get re-signed. Some of the guys you add to this roster, certainly the numbers and stuff would indicate that Terry Fontenot and his staff are going to have some fun, potentially to add some people to this group and make it a little bit more a talented group. But I asked him about Grady Jarrett. I said, I know you've looked at other teams' offenses, and maybe that Falcon tape was on, that Falcon defense. What do you see from 97? He goes, whoa, you talk about relentless. I love that guy.
Yeah.
I have to work with him. So already he's got a centerpiece to what that defensive line will look like.
Well, gap control, man, that's Grady right there, baby. He can get in there and do it, But what about the secondary? We got A.J. Terrell back there. Well, what else does that secondary need? Because you got to have some help on the back end too, because you can't rush and have a sack every big down.
Yeah, it's probably going to be, obviously you got to have a combination of the back end helping the front end get home. So I need to have tight coverage where as a quarterback, I'm not comfortable turning the ball loose because A.J. Terrell is in the hip pocket. Now, Casey Hayward got hurt. That hurt some this year at the corner spot, a little bit of a revolving door at that corner spot opposite A.J. Terrell. I would imagine that will be an area Atlanta will look at addressing in free agency or in the draft to add a guy that can play opposite A.J. Terrell. I like the 2 young safeties. I think Jalen Hawkins and Richie Grant came on this year. I think they're interchangeable. They're guys that can come up in the box, they can cover, they can play in the back end and roll them sideline to sideline. I like where that's going. So you're going to add some guys in the back end, but the ability to play aggressive, get up in people's faces, and let's not discount the fact Jerry Gray going to join the staff now. Jerry Gray, #1 draft pick of the Rams way back in 1985 as a corner out of what at that time was DBU, right, Texas?
Yeah.
And he's gone on to become an outstanding coach. He was the defensive pass game coordinator for the Packers. He's coached the likes of Xavier Rhodes in Minnesota, Jair Alexander in Green Bay. So he's got a little pedigree now when it comes to working with top flight corners. So you like the way that kind of feels too.
Okay, let's talk offense now, and let's talk your position, the quarterback, Desmond Ridder. He's going to get the ball. What do you like from him? I mean, I think about a guy that's drafted in the 3rd round. We go back to Chris Chandler, 3rd round pick, took the Falcons to the Super Bowl way back when. So what are your thoughts on Desmond Ridder?
Yeah, I think that Freddie, what jumps out at you, obviously he's got the size, the athleticism, he's got the arm strength to make throws. So those are the parts that you can measure. You can look at the scale. He ran like a 4.45 at the combine. All that stuff is nice and dandy. How does he handle his business? And this is a guy that was very poised. Think about his first two starts. It doesn't get you know as well as I do that going into New Orleans is not a place you like to maybe get your first start. We just mentioned that New Orleans defense that Ryan Nielsen was putting out there, Cam Jordan coming off the edge, and all the problems that those guys present. He handled his business extremely well. In fact, he makes a throw at the end of the game to give you a chance to win. Now, Drake fumbled the football, and that's on Drake, but not your young quarterback. He made a play on 4th down to set that up. You go to Baltimore. I mean, it's 0 degrees there, Fred.
Yeah.
How fun it is to play in that kind of. You played it in
Yeah.
Indiana. You know how those games are.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun to play in that kind of weather. You can't squeeze the football. What's he do? He makes numerous throws in that game that impress you. Then he comes back home and he wins 2 straight at home. By the way, undefeated at home, which is kind of cool. 26-0 at Cincinnati, and now 2-0 as a Falcon starter in your own building. So I just love the poise, the intangible part about it, where you start thinking about leadership, and he's not awed by the situation. I think all the football he played in college, he played some 50 games in college, won 44 games out of 50. This guy's a seasoned dude that's not just stepping in his first rodeo, albeit his first opportunity in the National Football League.
That's what I was going to ask you. How much his college experience helped? Because he did play a lot of games, because that program, he really kind of helped put it back on the map and helped take him to the college football playoff. We saw him here, at the Peach Bowl in the playoff. And just how much does that help a guy going into the pros when he's got that much college experience, that much game experience?
I think it's big, Fred. I think it really is. I think that you're accustomed to what it feels like to be under center. And I think it's all relative. I remember one guy asked me one time what the biggest game I played in was before I got to the league. And I talked about a high school football game I played. Well, I played junior college ball. I played major college football against Nebraska and Oklahoma. But I picked out a high school football game. It's all relative, right? How big it is at that time you play in it. I mean, the games he played in at Cincinnati are impactful to get him ready for the next level. Now, the next level in his mind is just another step in his evolution. So I love his ability to absorb that. You don't have to look any further than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, who came on with 7 straight wins for the 49ers, he played 48 games at Iowa State. So this is a similar guy like Desmond Ridder, probably a little bit better cast of characters to a certain extent around Brock Purdy. You sprinkle some of that stuff around Desmond Ridder, what do you get?
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you, too, about the offensive line, because we know Arthur Smith loves to run the football. Is the offensive line where it needs to be to not only protect Ridder, but to be able to run the football and chew some clock to put him in a position to win some games?
Well, I think you certainly would say yes to the ability to run the football. You like where they are, and they had the revolving door at left guard, right? Injuries and things happened again at left guard. You'd like to try to solidify that group. That team that went to the Super Bowl in 2016, they didn't miss a game the entire season. You remember, none of those guys missed games going to the Super Bowl. It's important to have continuity up front. It's probably the tightest knit group of any football team anywhere is your offensive line. They eat together, they walk around the streets together, their rooms, they hang out in the same room together. That's a tight knit group. So if you got a revolving door at one position, that begins to make things a little unsettled. Plus, you had a guy that was a first-year center in Drew Dahlman that was still learning on the job. I think they'll get exponentially better because of their chance to play together. But I still think you're continuing to look at maybe dressing up the offensive line, certainly at the left guard position. Elijah Wilkinson, I thought, played well when he was in there, didn't stay healthy. Need him to stay healthy for 17 games. And now you got that issue with Caleb McGarry on the right side. You spend the money to keep the big fella from Washington on that right tackle spot.
You know, you talked about the center and Dahlman. I mean, that position is so important, isn't it? Because that's the guy, he lines everybody up. He identifies things, you know, and kind of helps everybody out. So he's kind of the quarterback's quarterback, so to speak.
Absolutely. Dahlman does a ton of stuff at the line of scrimmage. There's calls and things that he's making at the line of scrimmage that help the young quarterback. Remember, rookie quarterback behind, first-year starter at center. So that created some things that they had to kind of dice through and dance through. Thought those guys handled it well those last 4 games of the year. And again, I think that the thing we forget about as fans is guys are going to probably get better. You're expecting them to get. I know Terry Fontenot is expecting these guys to take that next step, whether it's defense or offense. The younger players take that next step and help us be a better football team.
You know, Arthur Smith's obviously known for his offense, but, you know, I like the way he runs the ball. You know, I know he likes to open it up too, but I like the way he runs the ball and chews some clock and gives the guys, you know, gives his defense a little rest, gives him a chance to win more games.
Well, and it's a body blow, right, Fred? You're talking about beating the hell out of the other team's offense. You know, you start pounding on the other team's defense. Now the offense is sitting over there chomping at the bit to get back on the field, and you're just doing body blow, body blow, body blow to that defense. At some points that softens, and you got to figure that pays dividends. Now, you got to have guys that are explosive to go make plays. I think you got Drake London. Remember, you lost Pitts halfway through the year, so you lost a huge weapon there. Get some of these guys back on the field to couple with Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson running the football. Now all of a sudden you got something going on. And then Ridder's ability to stretch the ball down the field. He's got a big arm. That's one of the things they talked about him coming out. You remember, Fred, they talked about his ability to shoot the ball down the field. Haven't seen as much of that as we'd like to as fans. It's coming.
Okay, Eagles and Chiefs Sunday. Who do you like and why?
Well, I think I'm going to have to go with the NFC here, the Eagles. We're talking about sacking the quarterback. Now, both these teams, they were 1 and 2 in the league in sacking the quarterback. The Eagles had a mind-boggling 70 sacks on the year.
I know.
They had 4 guys that had 11-plus sacks defensively.
It's incredible.
So where are they coming from? And wherever they're coming from, it's with bad intentions. Hassan Reddick is a guy that you can't block. He has not been blockable in the postseason. He leads the postseason in sacks with 3.5. We saw what he did to Brock Purdy. Unfortunately, my guy from Iowa State hurt his arm on the play, but it changed the game. Reddick's a problem, and I think their 2 big corners have the ability to lock down. I think the question for me, Fred, will be, do they slide one of those corners inside to cover Kelsey? Because, you know, where are the plays going to come from when you start looking on the perimeter? You know, Tariq, is gone. McCole Hardman has just got put on IR. He's out.
Right.
So where are the plays going to come from? McKinnon's been pretty good out of the backfield. Pacheco's been pretty good out of the backfield. But, hey, I like my chances. This feels a little bit like that 20 championship game or Super Bowl where Kansas City couldn't block Tampa. Remember how Mahomes was on the run the entire game? It feels kind of like that to me.
And, you know, let's talk about the Eagles quarterback. I mean, I'm kind of a fan of Jalen Hurts because here's a guy who's kind of been not overlooked, but remember they put Tua in his place, then he came back and kind of saved the day and did that, and now he's in Philadelphia, and he's starting and he's showing what he can do.
Yeah, I think people forget that Jalen went to Oklahoma his last year.
That's right, yeah.
And he was second in the Heisman balloting. The guy lit it up at OU, throwing the football in Lincoln Riley's offense. Now he gets the opportunity as a second-round draft pick for the Eagles. There was kind of some screwy stuff that went on with their quarterback last year and who's going to play and who's not going to play. And finally, Jalen Hurts surfaces, and he's a guy that's going to hurt you a lot of ways. His ability to pull the ball down and run. They've got an RPO package with 3 backs that can carry the football. They got 2 perimeter guys that have got 1,200 yards receiving, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So they've got a ton of weapons for Jalen Hurts to get the ball to.
A.J. Green retired today. What are your thoughts on A.J. out of the University of Georgia? Great receiver for both the Bengals and Cardinals.
Great football player. I just remember he and Julio Jones came out in the same draft within a couple of draft picks of one another. And A.J. might have well been the player that the Falcons had taken. Remember, Cincinnati, I think, drafted a couple spots in front of Atlanta and took A.J. the hometown kid out of Georgia. And so Atlanta took Julio Jones. Now, nobody's complaining. Julio was a monster player here, had a great career as an Atlanta Falcon. But A.J. Green, as good as it's been over the last 8 or 9 years, outstanding football player, a guy that was a number one receiver, wanted the football, made a lot of plays for a Cincinnati team. It was pretty lean for them, too. They didn't get a lot of postseason opportunities, but A.J. kept coming to play.
One final question, Arch. Let's talk about being an analyst on radio and how you have to help kind of describe things and do things. How is that different? Because you do both. You do television sometimes as well. Just talk about the difference of that and how you have to do that on radio.
Well, it's fun. I mean, obviously there's a technique to it. You got to get to where you can be concise with your comments and things because there's only so much time between plays. I've got a great play-by-play guy I work with in West Durham, maybe I think is the best in the business. And so I jump in when Wes gets done and try to give some semblance of what's going on out there, not talk too technical because some fans, you know, they're not sure what cover 2 is. What are we doing in cover 4? How are they doing with a weak side pressure? You know, I got to be careful about getting too technical, but then if I'm going to use some of that stuff, explain some of that stuff. But it's a ton of fun because we're painting the picture, and it doesn't get any better than that.
Arch, thanks so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. Dave Archer joining us here on ANF Plus.